We're going to get this going shortly. Just kind of seeing that everything's working. Making sure our office doesn't look terrible in the background. There's a nice nice painting back there. Picked up in lovely Lake Geneva, Wisconsin a couple of years ago. I'd like it to be a little bigger though. I'm gonna just get going. Give me about 2 minutes here. This is our first time using this YouTube Live platform, so bear with us. We do these webinars pretty regularly, and I present at events pretty regularly and enjoy doing it. But yeah, we're messing around with some of our platforms, you know. So everybody, all the social media spaces have their live things now. So we have a decent little YouTube channel with decent subscribers. So thought we'd try this route. We've been using GoToMeeting. You know, everybody needs a password and stuff. So then you don't have to do all the back end work. It's just up on YouTube. We don't have to upload it. We don't have to do any of that stuff on the back end. So hopefully this is a good fit. Excuse me. And I think, you know, there's a chat feature and stuff. So it's nice on my end. I can control the questions. So I can't control the questions. I can control when I answer them. So that's where we are. I've got about 12:02 on my clock. I'm going to go at 12:04. Yeah, not sure who's on the call, but I'm Peter Olson, managing partner, Chicago Family Law Group. We're a pro-family divorce and child custody law firm here in downtown Chicago. We're 2 attorneys, a paralegal, 2 great support staff. I've been doing this personally since 2012, and well, strike that, I've been doing this since 2005, really, with the focus in family law only. And yeah, so it's a good area of law. You know, it's definitely something that's just a meaningful practice area. You know, you have kids oftentimes stuck in the middle of these situations, and I mean, what I'm passionate about in the family law space is it's not just about money, right? I mean, today's webinar is about child support and that kind of thing. But generally, it's really important issues in people's lives beyond money. It's not just 2 businesses fighting about stuff. So that's why I enjoy, you know, just having big impact in somebody's marriage, big impact with regards to the betterment of children, representing kids sometimes in cases. Obviously, sometimes we're representing parties as well, right? Parents. So a lot of times we're doing that. So so I'm going to get going with our slide deck right now. So yeah, we're topic today is how to get child support for kids in Illinois. 8 common questions answered. And you know, we have like 4 or 5 slide decks of different family law topics that we sort of run through every quarter, just because, right, you're always running into different people. You know, you never know who your audience is going to be. And quite honestly, the law changes too. So, you know, we're doing child support, child custody, things to think about before filing for divorce. I'm forgetting the other couple we do. But, you know, so sort of once they're in place, you can just sort of give them repeatedly. And the unique thing about what I wanted to talk about today is there is, effective July 1st, some really significant changes to how child support is handled in Illinois that is going to affect a lot of people, right? Nearly every child support case, any right, divorce, child custody case that has kids where there's going to be a financial obligation, it's going to be impacted by how we're doing child support now. Really at a very top level, sort of, public policy for 2 seconds is, for years, as long as I've been a lawyer, all we've done is you look at the person, you look at the, what we used to call the non-custodial parent's income, and you take a percentage of his or her net income, 20% for one child, 28% for two, 32 for three, 40 for four, and thereafter. Now we're doing what I think 40 of the 50 states do, which is what we call an income shares model, where both parents' income is in place or is absolutely part of the case and part of the calculation. So as I go through this, I'll give you a few thoughts on kind of what I'm thinking is really going to be the net effect in terms of dollars going to somebody either way. The politicians and, the people who've been involved in drafting this stuff, their statements and thoughts are, okay, so now it's not just about sort of getting money from one person. We're looking at everybody and we're looking at the full family picture. Might sort of tone down and make it more of a mutual thing, and maybe sort of tone down what animosity in cases. I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but that's what some people think. And I mean, I would imagine that would be a good result if that could happen. So I'm going to go to a screen share right now and throw up these PowerPoint slides, kind of get going that way. Yeah, check us out, Chicago Family Law Group, familylawchicago.com. I think you'll learn a little bit more about me, about our firm. You can schedule a free initial consultation there on the website as well. So just some things to think about. And it's hard for me to toggle the screen with the slides, but so I'm just going to go forward. This is, right, I mean, I'm not your lawyer when you're attending this webinar today. This is information, right? Part of it's sort of us wanting to introduce ourselves to people, and obviously a little bit of a marketing piece for our firm when we do these quarterly webinars. But if you want us to represent you, and we're good at what we do, and we're really focused in the family law space, I would encourage you to tee up a consultation, and we can get together and kind of learn more about kind of your individual situation. We always do a free initial 45 minutes with prospective clients. We're in downtown Chicago, or we have a couple suburban locations too, or honestly, if that doesn't work either, happy to do a telephone conference if we have to. It's always preferred to kind of get to know somebody. So here, let's go through these 8 questions. This is a bit of a mix of, like I said, these a webinar I've done in the past. Let's just call it old news, or stuff we've done before, with a number of slides on what this new child support law is. So I'm going to try to keep a little bit more of a focus on the new child support law, but some of the stuff is sort of, what would you say, sort of background or underlying stuff that's in play currently or under the new law. So let's talk about when the financial support of a child is something that a court or an administrative agency will address, because I don't think everybody always gets that. When wouldn't it be something that's going to be addressed, right? Married, stable family unit, kids living together with both parents. I think that would even be true in the unmarried situation, right? You got a family unit living together. Nobody's going to have child support ordered. Another time that oftentimes, financial support of a kid or children in a court or an administrative agency. Where that's not going to be in play is children spending equal time with each parent, and each parent earns approximately the same income. I can definitely think of a case or two we have going like that right now. And couple slides forward, there's actually some interesting new way that the new law deals with, what are they calling it now? Shared physical care situations, an entirely different formula that gets applied when you have shared parenting. But this is still a true statement that, if you do have equal time with pretty equal income, there's not going to be a child support obligation either way, to either parent. When is financial support going to be in play, right? These are some of your common situations and a couple that are less common. Married parents going through a divorce, post-divorce, right? Maybe child support wasn't set up, but you have minor children, or changing something post-divorce. Married parents living separate and apart. That's a little bit unusual, but that happens. Somebody who, for whatever reason, they remain married for years, but they're separated. Unmarried parents living separate and apart, right? That would be your classic, what we would call a parentage or a classic sort of child support case. And then this last one's a little unusual, but it comes up once in a while. Non-parents who have been given custody or guardianship of a minor child. We're just finishing up a case right now, actually, where a woman's going to end up adopting this 7-year-old daughter. But for a number of years, she's been a client of ours, and she's had guardianship over this. I want to say she's 7 years old. And that's a case where she can absolutely get child support from the natural father and the natural mother. So think about those different boxes, because not every kid or not every family setup necessarily would be appropriate for a child support order to actually get entered on. How and when can you pursue child support? First, how? These are sort of your three big options, right? Go it alone. You could file a case yourself. You could walk over to the Daily Center that's, 200 yards from where I'm sitting right now, file a case yourself, get it started. Use the state of Illinois. The Department of Healthcare and Family Services represents a lot of people in child support collection. It's not income contingent. A lot of their, persons using state healthcare and family services might be a little on the lower income side, but the reality is anybody can use them. And then obviously you can hire a private attorney. That's what we're doing every day. Just over at Daily Center this morning for a couple of matters. So those are the hows. They're right, good and bad to each of those, right? Hiring a private attorney who's good and focused and specialized in the area of law really is going to get you your best representation and your best result, right? It's also going to cost you the most, but sometimes, right, you being invested in your case is probably better for you too. State of Illinois, the big problem with them is they're really slow starting up cases, and they're usually not going to get you as much money as you're entitled to. There are a couple times when I think they're a good move. Sometimes, honestly, if resources and the ability to hire a private attorney is really out of reach, it's a good idea to just file your own case and get it started, and then maybe in the future transition it over to the state of Illinois, because then at least you're getting it started right away, and then you could use them more for collection and enforcement going forward. Timing, two big types of child support, right? Temporary child support is temporary and permanent, right? Temporary is the type of support you're getting while the case is going on, right? Some divorce cases take, you hear horror stories, and I could tell you the longest few that I've seen or been involved with. I feel like my personal record is really only, 2.5 years, if there's really meaty issues. But I can think of a couple clients of ours who were representing sort of post-divorce, who, had some 6 or 7 year cases. So that's why you have the temporary child support, right? You file a case and, you can get child support running a couple months later. because the case might be going on for a long time. And permanent is, that's what's in your final judgment. Somebody's getting divorced, you're having a judgment for dissolution of marriage entered. Part of that, obviously, if you have minor children, is going to be a permanent child support obligation. Other when situations, change in circumstances, right? And this would be, I guess, more the modification piece. Residence of a child changes, income of the parties change. And then these last couple, again, these are a little bit more fringe or less common, but after you've separated from a spouse on a permanent basis, after you've obtained guardianship of a child. I think, let's see, question 3. So question 3 is a good one. And hey, how much child support will you receive? Okay, these next 2 or 3 are, honestly, this is the new law. This is the new way child support is calculated. I'm going to do my best to explain it because it's new to me too. I'm definitely into it now because it's effective 7/1. But at the same time, I haven't been dealing with this for the last 12 years like I have, other parts of Illinois law. So what's no longer in play is looking at the father and saying your net income is $5,000 a month, and therefore you're paying 20% of your income for child support, and therefore your child support would be, $1,000 a month, right? 1,000 is 20% of 5,000. That's off the table. That's out of play. That's not how we do it anymore. So here we go. Let's talk about these 4 steps, and I'm going to work through an example with sort of some flat numbers here, okay? So, right, here's the big piece, right? We're calculating the individual, we're seeing what both parents make as opposed to just looking at one. And then we're looking at a combined monthly income figure. So this is a picture of, right, in my example, one parent's going to be making $2,500 a month. One parent's going to be making $7,500 as their net income. So we have this $10,000 combined monthly net income amount. And then here's the second step. And this is kind of a key thing. Now going forward, the state of Illinois is going to be putting out, basically government is going to be putting out this schedule of basic child support obligation that is really going to be an important thing. And because that's what we go to at step 2, just so we're clear, right? This couple has a combined monthly net income of $10,000. And so now we're not doing any math and I want to click on that and I can't. Hold on. I'm going to pull this up quick and show you what we're looking at. Because what we're calling this now, and feel free to grab, shoot me an email post program here, or what are we calling? What's the state calling this now? They're calling this a schedule of basic child support obligation. This is something that's now being put out by the state of Illinois, and it's really part of the child support calculation now, right? Because what we're doing is you're looking at this left column for the combined monthly income of the parties, right? In my example, I was using $10,000 a month, and then you're just pulling off the child support obligation from this chart. You follow? So I'm in this box here, $10,000 in monthly combined income. And then this first column is the 1445. That's where I'm getting that. So let's go back to the slides here. Let's See if I can let me see if I can jump back into where I want it to be. Forgive me. But so now we're looking at the state chart. That's where that number came from that I just looked at. That's straight out of the Schedule of Basic Child Support Obligation. But then where do we go from here? Here's where, it gets a little tricky, and we'll see how this ends up playing out. So now, right, step 3, determine the percentage contributions of each parent's income. So here's where, right, all that stuff is figure out income 1, match income to that chart 2, right? And now 3, determine the percentage contributions of each parent's income. And then that's how you get to the child support obligation of each parent, okay? So looking at this third bullet point here, right, the 1445 is this couple's child support obligation. But then question becomes, how are we dividing it between the two parents? One parent was earning $7,500 a month. So for that parent, we're taking the 1445 and we're multiplying it by 0.75, right? 75%. That parent's child support obligation is $1,083 per month. The other parent's, income was 25% of the combined 10,000, and that person's child support obligation is the $361.25. So that, right, that's the real quick snapshot of this new income shares model, right? We're looking at both parents. We're looking at basically what the Bureau of Labor and Statistics says, an average family spends on a kid as one child, two child, three child. That's where we're getting that $1,445 figure. And now we're sharing that, right, obligation between each parent in percentages of how their percentages fall between their respective incomes. So, right, and then what's your last piece? So it's really not that complex. The non-majority time parent then is going to pay her or his amount to the other parent. And then in parentheses, it's assumed that the majority time parent uses his or her contribution on the child, right? So in my example, right, in the third bullet point there, whichever parent is, in a traditional model, let's say one of the parent has 70% of the parenting time and one has 30. Therefore, if parent A is the 70% or majority parent, he or she is not going to be paying $361. It's assumed that they're spending that money on the kids, but then parent B is going to be paying that $1,083 to the majority time parent. So, So in a lot of cases, you're still going to have a child support obligation, no question about it. I think the question is really going to be, how's it going to play out? My quick take, having really gotten into this really only mostly the last month or so, is that I really see child support obligations generally being lower, right? Even in this example that we're looking at, right? Under the current statutory guidelines, if parent B, is earning $7,500 a month as her net monthly income, she would have a child support obligation of $1,500 a month, right? 20% of $7,500. Now in this current example, right, just that we walked through, third bullet point, her child support obligation is $1,083. So that's significant, right? That's 25 to 30% less than she would be paying under the current statutory guidelines. So that's my quick take. It feels like child support orders are generally going to be lower, and they're definitely going to be lower if the majority time parent, is a significant income earner, because now he or she, their percentage of the child support obligation is going to be a lot larger. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not the governor of Illinois nor an elected official, so right as at the private attorney level, you're just sort of, forgive me, this is sort of messed up formatting, but you're just dealing with what is, and what it appears to me that it's going to be is lower child support generally across the board. I'm not sure why that's necessarily good, but that's my quick take, very quick take when I say it, because I'm not even really dealing with this yet as a practicing attorney, because it's not in effect for another 10 days, 2 weeks. All right, let's look at another scenario that's brand new under the new child support law. And this is an interesting one. So, and here's the question 4, right? How is child support calculated in an equal parenting time situation? That's what the new law talks about. They talk about this shared physical care formula. And that's the magic number. The magic number is 146 days. Is if both parents' parenting time is 146 days or more, that's what the law talks about as when the child support then gets into this different formula than the formula that I just referenced. So let's take a look at what happens if, right, excuse me, you're in a parenting situation where, what's a 146 out of 365? It's definitely not equal just at 146, but yeah, I don't know, 40% or something maybe. All right, so like I say here, different formula is applied when both parents have 146 or more nights per year. So you're still doing the same step as we did on my last slide, right? Calculating the individual and then the combined net monthly income of the parents. That's happening, right? So I'm using the same example, 10,000 combined monthly. The link on this slide is actually just sort of a chart that the state has now put out for net monthly income. Now, here's where these last 2 bullet points are where things are different than the last slide, or a situation where you don't have shared parenting. Okay, so what we do here is let's just read it. Match the combined monthly income amount to that schedule of basic child support, right? We had this number on my last slide, $1,445. That's straight from the chart. Now, what happens in the shared parenting time situation is we multiply that number by 1.5. Where's that coming from? The Illinois General Assembly, that's where that's coming from. But I think the thinking and the explanation I've heard behind it is just sort of right now, parents are going to be having the kids more and therefore spending more on the kids. That's why we're using that 1.5 multiplication situation. So here's the math then when we're in this shared parenting time situation, right? That 1445 is right off that schedule of basic child support obligation that we looked at previously. Now I'm multiplying that by 1.5 to get that 2167. And now what are we doing with that? Now we're looking at, we're doing that same step that we did last time, right? We're looking at what percentage of each parent's income is applying, right? So we're taking the 2167 times 0.25, and we're taking the 2167. I think I have a misprint there on that slide there, but I think the actual math is correct. And we're saying, what is the 25% of the 2167 number, and what is the 75% of the 2167 number? Okay, and then lastly, how are we getting a final child support number? What we're doing is we're subtracting the smaller percentage contribution from the larger percentage contribution to get the final child support obligation. So do you see that math? Leaving aside my one misprint, the very bottom example here, right? 1665 is 75% of 2167 minus 541, which is 25% of 2167, leaving an $1,124 child support obligation from the higher income earner to the lower income earner. So again, the big point here is this applies only and specifically when a parenting plan, has, close to equal parenting, and but I mean that's the number that's absolutely in the law. It's not just like what is equal parenting time. It's do both parents have 146 or more? Child support law says we apply this and not that other formula. What's interesting to me is that my take on this second formula, the shared parenting time formula, is I think these child support situations in the equal parenting time situations are going to be larger child support awards than are currently in place. Whereas my quick take on, let's just call it the normal or majority situation, from question 3, that I thought will generally be lower child support obligations. I really think in these equal parenting time situations, people are going to get hit with bigger child support awards than in the past. I mean, frankly, right? You're multiplying. Okay, thanks. Hey, I got a call. This is what happens in my world, that some of these slides were not showing. Let me see what I can do here. All right, I'm going to go forward. If this is a little bit messed up, I'll maybe do a rebroadcast and or ask me to email you the slides. Because I, no joke, okay, I'm going to just continue through this verbally, and I can tee up some of these slides to everybody on here if I have to, and that's my fault. So let me do this. I was on question 4, basically the equal parenting time situation, and just finishing up with that. So here, let's go to 5 here. It's messed up formatting. What does and doesn't the new child support law apply to? So here's the deal. 3 quick bullets on this. Does apply to all new cases after 7/1/17. I think that's sort of right. That's the no-brainer. But it does also apply to all pending cases. That's actually a little bit not always typical. A lot of times, like cases filed before an effective date on a law might stick under some old law, the old law, but that's not the case here. So if you have a case with, that's been filed for 6 months, but you don't have a hearing until, August 3rd, that's going to be applying the new guidelines. Sort of humorously, I was in court on a case this morning where, honestly, I'm not so sure the opposing attorney is the greatest thing going, and I'll just keep it real generic. He or she had teed up something to modify and increase child support, and I'm not so sure that this individual has really thought about how the new law might apply to this particular case. And I could see child support going down, even though I think our client's income has gone up. But now it's going to be under the new law. So what doesn't it apply to? Here's the big exception that the new law does not apply to, just so it's real clear. Just the change of law does not allow somebody to go into court, petition for a child support modification based only on the based only on the new law. You follow? In other words, right, your classic child support modification would be, dad's income is twice as much as it was when the last child support order was entered. That would be a classic change in child support situation. Or, one of the kids has been graduated from high school, another classic child support change situation. So if you have that kind of stuff, you can go into court and change it. I actually have 2 cases right now that I've been sort of, what would you say, going slow on intentionally to make sure we're getting with the new law applied. And these are situations, it's basically where kids were just graduated from high school in early June, sort of traditional graduation time period. And so then there's a reason to modify child support, and we're going to modify child support based on that. But then we're also going to get the double benefit of being able to apply the new child support guidelines that I think in these particular situations are going to mean less support for our client. Question 6, other than guideline child support. Now, this is sort of, what would I say, review or old law, but I mean, still kind of, if you don't know it, good stuff to go by. Other than guideline child support, what other financial issues related to children will a court order? Because it's not just child support. It's absolutely not just child support. I think of it as 3 big things. I think of a when I talk about the financial support of children, in the court system, I'm thinking of three things. I'm thinking of child support, the stuff we just talked about. I'm talking about tax benefits, and I'm talking about expenses that the parties are going to be equally responsible for. Medical needs, daycare, childcare, school registration, and school expenses and extracurricular activities. So those are things to keep in mind, because those aren't always handled correctly. That's actually one of the big negatives of somebody using the state child support enforcement people. The state child support enforcement people only deal with child support. They don't deal with tax benefits. They do deal with medical insurance. But you leave a lot of money on the table by not dealing with the tax piece and not dealing with the other expenses that you're usually going to get ordered. I mean, it's not pie in the sky stuff. It's expected stuff. When can the financial support of a child start? Question 7. Right, unmarried relationships as soon as a child is born. Too often I see people wait far too long to do that. When you file a divorce or custody case, that's sort of a review from one of those earlier slides. Typically, if you know a case is going to be in court a little while, the first thing I'm doing is setting a court date for temporary support. 2 weeks after you file the case or something. Change of circumstances, that's one of those we spoke about. When will the financial support of a child end? Question number 8. Right, your typical one, I think I just brought up a second ago. I mean, there are really 2 or 3 different times, but 90% of cases, child support's going to end when a child is graduated from high school, right? I think the norm, I think this was me when I graduated high school, and I feel like it's, 80% of cases. You're turning 18 maybe in the spring of the year, and then you're graduating high school. And that's when your child support obligation or receipt of is going to end. So here, I think this is my last slide, and I apologize for some of this technical stuff. Actually, I have 2 more. Then maybe we can go a little bit more open-ended with some questions, and you can shoot us some email addresses and stuff, and we can get to you. But here, bonus item: financial support for non-minor children. 2 big areas that people often ignore, because there are 2 times, and I think only 2, when financial support can be paid from one parent to another parent. Post majority, right? Post graduation from high school. Mentally or physically disabled child, that's absolutely in play. Have a couple of those going right now, right? It just is what it is. If somebody, right, if a child is not going to be in a position where he or she's going to get educated, and right, it's going to be the responsibility probably of one of those parents for many years going forward. There are people who can be paying quote unquote child support, for years, and not just 18. And then your other one, honestly, you see more of, that I think is actually something that's missed a lot too, is educational expenses. Right, generally college or vocational school, right, post high school. Laws changed on this. When I say new law, this isn't as new as the new child support law, but this was just changed, I believe start of 2016. There's actually been a lot of movement in the family law space in the last few years, but makes it a little harder to get college expenses than it used to. Kid needing to maintain a C average. There is a hard cutoff at age 23 now. The other big thing I don't even think I mentioned here, well, actually I do. I think it's this 3rd bullet point under educational expenses. Plan ahead because you can't get prior to filing. There were some Supreme Court cases in the last 5-ish years that dealt with that. The idea of whether you could go retroactive for college expenses, because you used to be able to. Earlier in my career, you could absolutely kind of, your son or daughter is a junior in high school or junior in college, and you want to get those previous couple of years, from the other parent. And now that's a no-go. Now it's if you want to pursue it, you need to get it on file or it's gone. And not gone in total. I can think of a case I'm dealing with right now where father and mother have sort of been quietly negotiating, I think kind of wanting to keep this from being a blow up, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to be wasteful in litigation. However, one of these, in the next couple months here, I think this guy's son is starting college this fall. If it gets to October and nothing's happened, he will have sort of left that first semester on the table, and it's gone and you can't get it back. So, and the other thing about educational expenses, I think, again, when you have people who use the state's child support enforcement, let's just call it mechanisms or frameworks, again, all they do is child support. All they do is child support until a kid's graduated from high school. They have nothing to do with college or educational expenses. So for whatever reason, a lot of people just don't know about the fact that, post high school, there's absolutely financial obligations out there. How much? General guidelines. I generally see it sort of mirroring parents' incomes. If their incomes are equal, they're going to be on the hook for about an equal amount in terms of, tuition, room and board, living expenses. And typically a court's going to give a child a piece of it too. Real last substantive slide, some nuggets and just common stumbling blocks that I would say I run across. Multiple children with different mothers. That's a tough one. It's a tough one if you're a guy and you have multiple children with different mothers. It's tough. but it's just a different calculation, probably a bigger question than this webinar is intended to hit, but something to keep in mind. It's a different calculation. Plan ahead to terminate child support. Not much usually happens at court date number 1. So, always plan for 2 or 3, right? I mean, if you got a kid who just graduated from high school, you should have filed your case in, April or something, or March. But, if you haven't, let's set up a meeting and do what we have to do. But just a word for the wise. File for educational expenses in the middle of a child's senior year. There's there's more to those cases, I think, than people think about, specific to, like choice of school and things like that being in play, even before you get to the money issue, that you probably want to play and be a part of. This is, right, this is my bias, I guess. I mean, it is, but I mean, it's from experience. Avoid using the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services. This isn't being personally critical. I have a lot of friends and good relationships with colleagues over there, because they're in a lot of cases. But, right, the reality is they're dealing with a lot of cases every day in court. So you're not getting the same level of service that you would if you had a private attorney who's all in on, 1 or 2 cases that are in court. A couple exceptions, though, would be, if you have somebody who's really recalcitrant and is just, going to do everything he or she can do to avoid paying child support, eventually it does, I suppose, become an issue of sort of throwing good money after bad. Paying a private attorney, hundreds and thousands of dollars to, not get that much. So, they are a good option to just sort of hammer, basically. And then, there are these 2 pieces, and that is the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services can grab tax refunds that a private attorney cannot grab, and they can grab unemployment benefits that a private attorney can't have. And just a couple right words, just right thoughts in terms of process and planning. It takes a little while to get child support started. I mean, if we had a new client tomorrow, we filed a case within the week, it would still, right, we'd get a court date 2 or 3 weeks out, but, it'd still be 2 to 3 months maybe before somebody's actually seen money. Child support isn't reliable. That sounds bad, but if somebody really doesn't care how they're living in terms of, getting their driver's license pulled and going to jail every so often and that kind of thing, it's tough to get money out of some of those people. I can think of it's actually a female one time, 10 years ago, where I was a court-appointed attorney on. She kind of didn't mind going to jail, and she had so much animosity towards, I think it was an ex-husband, that enforcement wasn't very effective against her. And I would say there is that little group of 5% of the population who kind of just doesn't care and maybe has so much anger or something. So what questions do you have? I'm going to put this back on the webcam. Schedule a free 45-minute initial consultation if that's something you're interested in. That's the website, 312-893-588 is our main number. My email address, P like Peter, OLSON, POLSON at familylawchicago.com. Yeah, hit me up for an email if you want these slides, and I apologize for that. I wasn't kidding, as you can tell, about using YouTube Live for the first time on today's call. Let me see what else I can tee up here. Yeah, so apologize for that. Being a little weak on the technical side. I'll have to watch this later. Live and learn, improve. It's kind of what life's about, right? So I'm going to try and see if I have any questions. I mean, email is a good way to go if you wanted to chat. Fine too. Yeah. What would be a closing thought or two on my end? Other than my stereotypes on what do I think is going to happen with the new laws, like I said, it looks to me like, the people in, sort of a more traditional situation where one parent is a majority parent and one parent is not, those cases, it really looks like to me the child support is going to be a lot lower than in the past. In those equal parenting time situations, it looks to me like child support is going to be higher. That's absolutely what it's looking like to me, because in a lot of those equal parenting time situations right now, I feel like we're getting real low child support awards and oftentimes just no support awarded. And that looks like now it's going to be like we're going to apply this this model, the shared physical care formula, is now what's going to get applied. So who should be taking action on this now? Like I said, I mean, if you can wiggle a case into a situation where you can say, hey, there's a reason to change child support lower other than just the law change, I really think it might be time to tee something up if I were you. Like I said, I'm doing 2 cases right now that are, there are 2 children families where the guys are paying child support, the fathers. Both of them have had oldest children just being graduated from high school. So we can absolutely go into court and, legitimate basis. There's been a substantial change in circumstances. Now there's only 1 kid at home to support. But so then I'm going to be able to apply the new law to these 2 gentlemen's cases. And I think it's going to save them a lot of money. So that's my take on the situation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that, I guess shoot me an email with questions. I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes. I've got 12:52 Chicago time, and don't see a lot of chat questions. But yeah, please email me like Peter Olson, POLSON at familylawchicago.com. To get the slide deck. And yeah, apologies for not perfect technical playing out today, but this is a big change. I mean, just to pontificate for 2 or 3 minutes as we close, it's kind of the thing that I get a kick out of as a family law attorney is right, word on the street, right, the stereotype is Illinois doesn't do anything in terms of government and right, legislative officials doing anything. That being said, right, in the family law space, every major part of Illinois family law has really been changed dramatically in the last 2.5 years. How we do maintenance or spousal support has been modified in the last 2 or 3 years. How we do, what used to be called custody, but is now, allocation of parental responsibilities and allocation of parenting time has been dramatically changed. And now, child support has been dramatically changed. And the whole Illinois Parentage Act was totally rewritten too. So, honestly, in my world, the only 2 sort of things that I'm doing regularly, Illinois Domestic Violence Act really hasn't been modified recently, nor the Illinois Adoption Act. But those other areas, it's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, as an attorney, you definitely can't be a dabbler because you're going to be staying up on this stuff for, some lawyer's going to walk into court talking about 20% of somebody's net income, and it's like I'm talking about sole custody, and it's like, hey, have you read the legal changes in the last 5 years. So I'm going to leave it there. Check us out, familylawchicago.com, and let's connect sometime soon. Thanks for jumping on the broadcast.